How to get rid of the warnings when opening a file that has a SWP file. How can I get rid of the annoying warnings when I open a file that has a SWP file? Or, how do I not generate the SWP files at all? Example warning.
This message is actually pretty important if you care about not losing text you've potentially not saved. It should not be considered annoying, and should not cause you to hastily delete the swap file or configure Vim to run without it. Any file you edit with Vim will have a corresponding swap file while you edit, which Vim uses to keep track of changes. When you quit editing a file, Vim will automatically discard the corresponding swap file. Therefore, the existence of a swap file, and your attempt to write over top the original file, should be cause for consideration and appropriate action. The two scenarios presented in the message, E325 column attention found a swap file, are actually quite common. 1. Either another Vim program is editing the very same file you're trying to edit. It could actually be another person, in which case it really wouldn't make sense to just blindly delete the swap file, or it could be you in another terminal window or tab, or 2. A previous Vim session crashed. Most often this happens when you're editing remotely, and the network session is severed, in which case the Vim session was not exited normally, and the .swp file remains behind. Another example of this second scenario is that you've accidentally closed the terminal window or tab that had an active or backgrounded Vim session. When I encounter this message, I first think about whether I am editing this file in another terminal window or tab, as I normally operate with several terminal windows with several tabs each. If I realize that I am editing in another place and can return to it, I then press the Q key to quit this additional session, and return to editing via the original Vim session. Sometimes if I am not entirely sure, I quit and then run jobs to verify whether I am running Vim in the exact same terminal. If nothing comes up, I run psf grep vim to check whether I am running Vim elsewhere, i.e. in another terminal window or tab. The point is, I always try to resume editing via the original Vim session. If I am certain that I cannot return to the original editing session, and I am still presented with the following options, then I press R2, recover. Pressing R, you will see a message like this. If, on the other hand, I am no longer faced with those options, because I am at the shell prompt, then I run Vim with the R option, as follows. The resultant message will be similar. Either way, press Enter to continue, and you will see your file. Note, if Vim has doubt about what it found, it will give an error message and insert lines with in the text. If you see an error message while recovering, search in the file for to see what is wrong. You may want to cut and paste to get the text you need. The most common remark is lines missing. This means that Vim cannot read the text from the original file. This can happen if the system crashed and parts of the original file were not saved. That said, I have never seen those marks, so this must be a truly rare occurrence. Next, save, i.e. write, the content to another file, Usually I just append 2 to the end of the original file name. Next, force quit this Vim session. Next, compare the two files. If the diff returns nothing, that means there is no difference, and it is safe to remove both the swap file and the second file. At this point, open the original file and proceed as if there had never been a problem. If the diff returns something, that means the original file, via the swap file, had changes that, thanks to the recover, have been saved to the second file. Since those changes are captured in the second file, you are safe to delete the swap file and overwrite the original file with the second one. At this point, open the original file and proceed as if there had never been a problem. This seems like a lot of work, but once you get used to the workflow, it takes like 20 seconds max.
The pasted message suggests you still have the notes file open in another Vim session. It is definitely not a good idea to edit a file that is being edited elsewhere. If that message is wrong, you need to determine how your Vim session exited improperly and avoid that in the future. As for recovering, that may be an issue in this one instance since Notes is newer than the Vim SWP file associated with it, but you can still try. Just make sure you copy your Notes file to a backup location first. It would be a good idea to read through column help recover.txt. The lesson here is that you are not supposed to be seeing this message, and that you are means something went wrong somewhere. It's probably not the fault of Vim. If at this point you are still absolutely determined not to let Vim create SWP files so you can recover from crashes and other related issues, you may put set no swap file in /vimmer.
You can use N to open Vim without using a swap file. To do this all the time, just put in your /, or _aliases file. If you ever need to run Vim without the N option, just run
This happened to me when my terminal unexpectedly closed my connection with Vi Open. Thankfully I had no changes lost. To remove that warning and discard the swap, find the process of looking at, process ID column 2251, still running, in this case it's 2251. Verify you got the right ID, PS 2251. Kill the process using, kill 2251. And that's it. Remember, swap files are there to protect you, and you should not disable them completely.